Shubhodayam. Welcome all to the yet another session on Dharma Sastras by Dr. Nithin Sridhar. Today, I think we'll be seeing Dharma Shastras in Mahabharata. A very interesting subject. And let us start this session by paying respects to the nation by singing Vande Mataram. Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam Sufalam, Malayaj Sitalam, Sasya Syamalam Mataram, Vande Mataram. Suprajosna pulakitayaminim Pullakusumita drumadala shobhinim Suhasinim Sumadhura bhashinim Sukhadam varadam mataram Vande mataram Vande Mataram. Now I request Sudhir Patarji to do the chant Pradhana, please.
Namaste. Let's start with 1 minute meditation. Om. 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 Om Ganana Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinamupamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Ana Shrunvannutibhis Siddhasadanam Om Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha Om Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinama Vitrayavatu Om Shri Mahasaraswatyai Namaha Gurureva Gati Gurumeva Bhaje Gurunaiva Sahasmi Namo Gurave Na Guroh Paramam Shishurasmi Guroh Matirasti Gurau Mam Pahi Guru Jnananandamayan Devam Nirmalaspatikakrutim Adharam Sarvavidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। मातृदेवो भव, पितृदेवो भव, आचार्यदेवो भव, अतिथिदेवो भव। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्।
Thank you very much, Sridhar Patarji, for the nice pradhana. Welcome, Dr. Nithin Sridharji. And now, I think today is the yet another good day to start on Dharma Sastras and more into what Dharma Shastras is through Mahabharata. I hope I'm right. That is the topic for the day. Right. Thank you very much. And welcome. And the session is yours. You can start the webinar.
Thank you very much for inviting again. Let me begin with prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurmi Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhattakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Sudha Namokate Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Let me share my screen. Hope the full screen is visible.
Yeah, it's visible. Go ahead.
So the title of today and tomorrow's session will be Dharma in Mahabharata. See, Mahabharata is a very huge text. It is a mammoth text. As the name itself says, is a very heavy text. So the two sessions cannot and will not do any justice to the text. So rather, we will just look into a few gems, a few bits of dharmic guidelines that are hidden in Mahabharata. And for the purpose of the presentation, all the references to Mahabharata, the verses, etc., have been sourced from a wonderful book by Chaturvedi Badrinath titled The Mahabharata, An Inquiry into the Human Condition. It's a very excellent book. Moving forward, I just changed my slide. I hope the new slide is visible.
Yeah.
So let us first understand the greatness of Mahabharata as a text. I had mentioned in previous sessions on Dharma Shastra how the Vedas and the Smritis hold a very, very special position as the primary sources of knowledge about Dharma. There is a verse in Manusmriti which says that Shruti and Smriti should never be criticized because the Veda is the Shruti and the Smriti is the Dharma Shastra, and they should never be criticized because from them the Dharma shows forth. So as the core source of Dharma, both Shruti and Smriti are very, very foundation. However, Mahabharata as a Itihasa is very special. It has a very special importance in our tradition. And Mahabharata itself self-describes its unique role, its speciality. So just 3 or 4 small quotations from Anukramanika Parva that appears in the very beginning portions of Mahabharata on its own self-description about why it is important, what is its purpose, what is its special role. See, this is the beauty, be it Manusmriti or Mahabharata. We can call these texts as self-aware texts in the sense that these texts clearly delineate their self-aware of their function, their purpose. This is what Anubandha Chatushtaya is all about, that there is clarity on what the text is, for whom the text is, what is the subject matter, and to what end the subject matter is being enunciated. So in the Anukramanika Parva, Mahabharata says, the 3 mysteries of knowledge, the Vedas, the Yoga, the Vijnana, were created, as well as Dharma, Artha and Kama. The sage saw the various Shastras interspersed with Dharma, Artha, Kama and rules of conduct for the world. He saw the ancient histories and all their commentaries and the Shruti texts as well. This book, Mahabharata, has the signs of all those, and everything is here. Having distilled the great knowledge, the sage made a summary of all that in both abridged and detailed forms as a storehouse of knowledge for the retention of the wise of this world. See how beautifully it has been put. So Mahabharata is not a book of history in the sense we understand today. Mahabharata is a itihasa as it happened, yes, but it is much more than that. The sage Dvaipayana Vyasa, the great Vyasa Maharshi, he has created a wonder text, a wondrous text. It has Veda, it has the distilled essence of Veda, Yoga, Vijnana, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Shruti, Smriti, the commentaries, everything that were before him, everything that were transmitted as part of the Guru Shishya Parampara for many centuries or many millennia before Vyasa, all of them in their condensed form have been distilled into this Mahabharata, have been made accessible to one and all through this Mahabharata. So this Mahabharata is at once a holy Upanishad, a sacred Upanishad. It is also a Dharma Shastra. It is also Artha Shastra. It is also a Moksha Shastra. So it has elements of all this embedded within. So another place, Anukramanika Parva says, Krishna Dvaipayana has composed a holy Upanishad. The study of Bharata is such a sacred act that even if one reads only one line of a shloka, all the papam of the reader are destroyed. Here are lauded the performers of the pure deeds, the Devatas, the Devarshis, the Brahmarshis, the Yakshas, the great Nagas, the eternal Lord Vasudeva, the Bhagavan Krishna has been lauded here. It is He, Bhagavan, who is truth, immortality, purity, and holy. In it is described the eternal Supreme Brahman, who is the constant, everlasting light, and whose divine action is described by the Lord. See how beautifully it describes. If you're reading a simple novel, there is no destruction of papam. There is no accumulation of punya. But Mahabharata is no mere novel. Mahabharata is a holy, is a sacred Upanishad like text itself. Its study brings great punyam. And the beauty of this text is it brings within a literary form, it makes it accessible for all the devotees to immerse in the Leela of Bhagavan, to immerse in the Leela of Parabrahman, in his Saguna aspect, in his Avatar aspect as Krishna, who is Swayam Bhagavan. It also helps us to immerse ourselves in the Leela of various Devatas, Maharshis, Brahmarshis, Yaksha, Gandharva, Nagas. So this is the beauty of Mahabharata. It brings there is an avatara of Bhagavan in a literary format into Mahabharata. At again, the Anukramanika Parva says the Vedas should be supported with Itihasa and Puranas, but the Vedas are afraid of those with little learning, lest the knowledge be heard. However, if a learned man decides this Veda of Krishna, that is Dvaipayana, he will gain. The gist is that the Itihasa Puranas make accessible the essence, the distilled knowledge of the Veda. While lot of learning, lot of competencies, lot of intelligence, lot of many other capabilities are needed to study Veda, the Itihasa Puranas makes those knowledge, the distilled aspect form of those knowledge, accessible to one and all in a format which is easily digestible by one and all. Yet again, it says that in the ancient times, the Devatas and the Rishis came together and they took the scale, the measuring scale, and placed the Vedas on one side and Mahabharata on the other side. And in greatness and in weight, Bharata was heavier, because of its superiority in substance and content. It came to be known as Mahabharata. And he who knows this true meaning is free from all sins, all papa. So this is an Arthavada, basically. This is praising the importance of Mahabharata. But it does not mean that Veda has now become, inferior. It is not so. Veda remains the only independent pramana for Dharma and Moksha. But what the superiority of Bharata or Mahabharata is in the sense of what I just already explained, that it brings in one place the distilled knowledge of Veda, Yoga, Vijnana, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and everything in a accessible format, and it brings the distilled knowledge of the entire Hindu civilization by Vyasa, the distilled knowledge of the many yugas for the sake of the people of Kali Yuga. Vyasa composed this Mahabharata. This Bharata, which is very heavy, which is very dense, which is very exhaustive, which is very comprehensive. Hence Mahabharata. So with this brief about the greatness of Mahabharata, let us look into some characteristics of Dharma as enunciated in Mahabharata. If you remember, in our Dharma Shastra sessions, we clearly mentioned how on matters of Dharma, again, Shruti and Smriti are to be consulted. And in the Smritis, the teachings are given primarily in a very systematic manner in the form of vidhi and nisheda. So also in the Veda, the Chodana Vakyas, the Vakyas which tell us do this, don't do this, right? The do's and don'ts. However, our practical life, our day-to-day life is much more complicated. While the do's and don'ts, the stipulations and the prohibitions provide the much needed clarity on what kind of actions that we should do and what kind of actions we should avoid, what are our primary duties, whether it is in the context of a family, whether it is in the context of our ritualistic duties, whether it is in the context of our social interactions with the rest of the world. These definitely bring in the do's and don'ts great clarity on the matter. However, by nature, they are also limited in the sense that in our everyday life, we are always we face many complex challenges, many dharmic dilemmas. The life is not black and white, but it is a complex shades of gray. We will always be putting ourselves in situations wherein two dharmic principles could be clashing, wherein many different principles, some of dharma, some of adharma, some of neutral nature, will be clashing for attention. There would be many, many complicated situations wherein it is not enough to know only the do's and don'ts. We will have to anchor ourselves in the first principles of dharma and analyze the situation. And it is not that the smritis are unaware of this. They themselves also give such principles. For example, in the Manusmriti, we have ahimsa satyamasteyam shaucham indriya nigram as the very basic common principles of dharma. While it is said in the context of all human actions, it is also can be used as the fundamental principles through which all life can be analyzed. Ahimsa is truthfulness, ahimsa is non-injury, satya is truthfulness, indriya nigra is control of the mind and the senses, etc. Similarly, there is also one place where Manusmriti says, Dharmasya dasha lakshanam, the 10 lakshanas of the dharma, which includes dhriti, dhi, and many other qualities. It is in this sense, we have many such characteristics of dharma that are enunciated in Mahabharata. Mahabharata, the characteristics that I am going to share with you are spread across different parvas. But the essence is every time one idea is brought forward to us as the essential idea of what constitutes dharma, as the guidance, as the point of guidance to help us to differentiate the strands of dharma from the strands of what may appear as dharma but may not be really dharma in our individual context and situation, or what may be dharma in general but may not be dharma for us in particular at that particular situation, particular condition. So just like a swan separates the milk from the water, or we have to separate the wheat from the chaff, these very essential ideas about what dharma is or what the characteristics of dharma help us to ground us in the essential definition of dharma, in the essential nature of dharma. And these are very, very important as far as practical implementation, practical interpretation, practical contextualization of the teachings of Dharma found in Shruti, Smriti, and that we can learn from our Sadachara, from our Shishtas, from every other source. So one such characteristics, the principle is Prabhava. In Shanti Parva, there is a very beautiful verse which says, Prabhavarthaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam यह स्यात् प्रभव संयुक्तः स धर्मम् इति निश्चया. यह स्यात् प्रभव संयुक्तं स धर्मम् इति निश्चयः. Therefore, whatever has the characteristics of prabhava, know that as dharma, this is certain. Know that certainly to be dharma. What is this prabhava? Prabhava means bringing. Prabhava means nurturing, cherishing, providing more amply, enriching, increasing, enhancing all living beings in one word is securing their prabhava. See, prabhava means enrichment, that which increases, that which enhances all that we have. Therefore, through such enhancing of all the good we have, dharma nurtures us, cherishes us. Therefore, this is called as prabhava. And this is the nature of dharma. So all that which has the characteristics of bringing about enhancement, enrichment in our life, which secures our prabhava, which secures our well-being through prosperity. This prosperity may not be just financial. This would be overall prosperity through enhancement of all the good in us, in all dimensions of life. Know that certainly to be dharma. So this prabhava is such characteristics of dharma. So when you analyze your own life, or when you analyze a situation in society, or when you are making a government policy on very important matters, we can ask ourselves questions such that, is this policy, or is this principle, or is this aspect of our life enriching our overall life, is leading us to overall well-being? Is this securing us? Is this beneficial? Is this facilitating enhancement of what is good in us, the good aspects of us, or is it enhancing the negative aspects of us? Based on these such analysis, we can tweak, we can make adjustments, we can make necessary modifications. This is how you can anchor your vision, your action, your policies in dharma. Another such characteristics of dharma is dharana, and we already discussed this when we were discussing the definition of dharma in the previous week. In Shanti Parva again says, in the very next verse from Prabhava, it says, Dharana dharma mityahu dharmena vidrutaha prajaha yasya dharana samyuktaha sa dharma iti nishchaya. See the similarity in language. Yasya prabhava samyukta, now here yasya dharana samyukta. Therefore, whatever has the characteristics of dharana, know that to be dharma certainly. That is certainly dharma. Nishchaya. Nishchaya means it is surely, without doubt. So whatever in life has the characteristics of dharana, that also is dharma. All the sayings of dharma are with the view of supporting, sustaining, bringing together, and in their togetherness upholding all living beings. In one word, their dharana. So while Prabhava was about enriching what is already there, increasing what is already there, and nurturing and cherishing through such enriching and increasing, Dharana is bringing together, facilitating, sustaining, upholding an individual through such sustenance, through such bringing together of all that is good. Dharana is all that which determines whether one sustains, one survives, or one withers away. Whether one is on the path to well-being or one is on the path to suffering. So they are connected. Whatever does the dharana should inevitably also do prabhava. Right? They are very, very interconnected. Prabhava and dharana. They're almost as if two sides of a coin, or cause and effect relationship in a sense, because that which dharana does dharana brings together all that is needed, and then there's enhancement of that prabhava of that further to do further dharana. Right? They have interconnected relationship. Third principle of such characteristics of dharma is ahimsa. Ahimsa arthaya bhutanam dharma pravachanam kritam yasya sampruktaha sadharma iti nishchaya. This is again from Shanti Parva. These are all actually connected. The first three, Prabhava, Dharma, and Ahimsa, they appear one after the other successively in the Shanti Parva. All the sayings of Dharma are with a view to securing for all living beings Ahimsa, that is freedom from violence, freedom from injury, freedom from unnecessary harm. Therefore, whatever has the characteristics of not doing injury is dharma. This is certain. So conversely, whatever has the characteristics of depriving, starving, diminishing, separating, uprooting, hurting, doing injury, debasing, degrading, is the negation of dharma. Whatever brings about such degradation, such injury, such starvation is adharma. You see how useful these principles are. Prabhava, dharana, ahimsa, they are called nishchaya. Certainly they are dharma. Therefore, whatever that is opposite to it, opposite to prabhava, prabhava means enrichment, enhancing. Opposite to that prabhava is whatever starves us, whatever deprives us of what is good in life, what is necessary in life, deprives us of dharma, artha, and kama. Similarly, instead of doing dharana, what depraves us, what leads us to suffering, what leads to delusion, debasing. Similarly, what leads to violence, what leads to all kinds of debased behaviors, including, put it in modern terms such as machoism and violence and all kinds of that is activity which are exhibit such aspects. All these are adharma. They are the negation of that. So these principles are very, very, very important when we are analyzing our socio-cultural situation, when we are reading a news in a newspaper, analyzing a government policy, or analyzing our own life, where we are going, where we are there, where we are falling, how to hold ourselves, how to move forward. In Vanaparva, another such characteristics is brought forth. Arambo Nyaya Yukto Yah Sahi Dharma Iti Smrita. Whatever has its beginning in Nyaya, here Nyaya is used as in the sense of justice, that alone is called Dharma. Whatever is Anachara, whatever is unjust and oppressive is Adharma. This is the rule settled by those who can be respected. Shishta, the word is this Shishta Anushasanam. So this is the rule as given by the Shishta, as implemented, as practiced by the Shishta. The Shishta is not one simply one who is respected. The Shishta is one who knows the Veda, Smriti and other Pramanas, who knows the Dharma and who practices such Dharma. So this is the practice of the Shishta, that they know, they analyze Dharma using the principle that whatever has a beginning in Nyaya, in justice, that alone is Dharma. Whatever is rooted in Anachara and oppression, it is Adharma. Justice is therefore that which has the characteristics of nurturing, cherishing, providing amply, enriching, increasing, enhancing all living beings, supporting, sustaining, bringing together, and in their togetherness, upholding all living beings and securing for all living beings freedom from violence, freedom from fear. Whatever is anachara, unjust and oppressive, anachara is being translated as unjust and oppression, is adharma, having the depriving, starving, diminishing, separating, uprooting, and debasing and degrading, that is the negation of dharma. You see, this shows the interconnectedness of all these characters that we discussed. Prabhava, Dharana, Ahimsa, Nyaya. They are all connected. They are all different ways of looking at Dharma. They bring forth a different dimension of Dharma, but they are essentially a reference to Dharma itself. Adroha is another such quality. Etat sarvam samalokya budhanam esha nishchayaha adrohenaiva bhutanam yo dharmaha sa satam mataha. Sa satam mataha. This is again from Shanti Parva, from a different chapter there. It says, however, after observing this variety and reflecting deeply, the learned and the wise have concluded that not to be treacherous, adroha, not to be treacherous, not to be malicious, adroha, towards other beings is dharma in the eyes of the good and the saintly. So you should never, in deception in our action, treacherous behavior in action, in our thoughts, in our speech, that is adharma. Then it says, Manasa sarvabhuteshu, Manasa sarvabhuteshu, Shivam acharet. Manasam sarvabhutanam dharmamahur manishinaha tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu manasa shivamacharet. This is again from Shanti Parva. It says, those who have thought deeply are of the view that dharma is what is done for all beings with one's heart and mind. One's heart and mind. Manasam sarvabhutanam. Tasmat sarveshu bhuteshu manasa shivamacharet. Therefore, let one do with one's heart and mind, one's manas, what is good for all beings. So the gist here is that one should genuinely wish for the good of the others. And whatever actions one does so with genuine goodness, in heart, genuine kindness, but also with complete awareness. Now, I will give a contrary example. The Christian missionaries often, when they come to convert the heathens, the Hindus and other idolaters, the heathens, they always say that we have your well-being in mind. You're following a wrong religion which will lead you to hell. We want to prevent you from the suffering, from burning in hell. So we have your good in mind. Therefore, you should come to the path of the Jesus. You see, they are using this language of goodness, that as if they have the goodness of the heart. They are doing it with openness of the heart and mind. Their goodness out of their kindness. They want to save us. And many of them truly believe that. But problem is that is not what is this Manasa Shivam Acharet is. Why? Because if what they're doing is truly correct, then if the same thing, if it were to be done to them, it should have been acceptable to them. But we all know they're completely intolerant towards any other religions attempt to convert. Right? It is only one-way street. So when we speak about Manasa Shivamacharet, it is not just we have to be, it has to be kind, we are doing it out of our kindness of our heart, but the kindness of our heart also implies no deception, adro. What the conversion attempts does is there is a deception there. Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, not the Arya Samaj Swami, but the Arsha Vidya Gurukulam Swamiji, he says there is his one small booklet called Conversion is Violence. So there is an element of violence in conversion. There is an element, you are hiding that element and pretending to be doing something from kindness of the heart. Therefore, there is also droha there. So there is violation of ahimsa and adroha. Therefore, that attempt cannot be out of kindness of one's heart. The kind of conversion that Mother Teresa did, converting patients on their deathbed, these are all not positive aspects. These are all not dharma. So, Manasa Sarvabhuteshu Shivam Acharet, it refers to the other principle that we can use it to understand is from Shanti Parva itself. You have what he does not find agreeable when done by others onto him, that he should not do unto others. He must know that what is unhappy for him cannot be happy for others. Similarly, Anushasana Parva says whatever is not agreeable to him, that he should not do unto others. This in brief is dharma, all else is selfishness. So when we act out of kindness of heart and mind, it is also an act of consciousness. It is a conscious act. The real kindness is truly understanding what the situation of the other person is. It is the act of a guru who gives good guidance, right guidance to the Shishya without any deception, without any himsa. The principle is, I do not want the negative to be done to me. I should also not do that to others also, right? Another principle is Priya Abhyugatam, again in Shanti Parva, says basically what is obtained by love and friendship, all that is dharma, its opposite is adharma. consider this to be distinguishing sign of Dharma and Adharma. So whether today we all speak about only the end matters, not the path. That may be so in a limited sense, but Mahabharata is stressing here that the source, the path through which a certain thing is obtained is equally important and not just the end result. So all that is obtained by love and friendship, that is all that is obtained through dharmic means is dharma. If something is obtained in a way which is problematic, then the end result is also tainted. And we see that in Kali Yuga, most of our sources, most of our means, they are tainted. They are not pure. As such, the results are also not pure. This is the nature of Kali Yuga. Dharma stands on only one leg. Now, let us take up another issue. The problem of relativism. As I mentioned, everyday life is much more complicated. The texts can never cover everything. There cannot be a delineation of do's and don'ts and matters of everything present in a very single text. The purpose of the Dharma Shastra is to teach us those eternal principles, eternal guidelines, those do's and don'ts, whether it is in the form of Vidhi Vakya, Nisheda Vakya, or in the form of stories in the Mahabharata, etc. They give us eternal principles of Dharma about karma, karma phala relationship, and lot of guidelines on practical life, which are always valid. However, eventually, we have to base ourselves on that to determine, to contextualize those teachings, to interpret those teachings into our own life situations, to take decisions, to decide for ourselves what is the course of action we have to take. So this is the nature of Dharma, and this is where the relativistic nature comes into picture. So because of the relativistic nature and the complexity of multidimensional nature of life, there are always many internal and external limitations, compulsions, conditions acting upon every situation. And what appears as Dharma in one context could easily become adharma in another context. Like a particular food may be good for a healthy person, but it may be harmful for another person with having a particular health condition. The same food could be good for one, bad for other, right? Mahabharata, through the voice of Yudhishthira, highlights this problem. In Shanti Parva, at one place it says, none could see anywhere conduct that would be uniformly good for all. Sadachara is one of the sources of Dharma. Learn from the activities of others, the good conduct of those who know Dharma, those who know the Vedas and Smritis and other Shastras and practice it in life. So the Sadachara is posited as one of the Pramanas of Dharma. But in Shanti Parva, it highlights how, Yudhishthira highlights how even this cannot be fully relied upon, because there is no conduct which can be said to be uniformly good for all. What is good for Raja may be bad for Rani, right? What is good for Henry may be bad for Harry, right? What is more, the Shanti Parva says, what is more, one could see the crude and the unsophisticated doing what looks like dharma, but in fact was adharma, and the reverse being often the case with the actions of the sophisticated and the cultured. The same act is dharma or adharma for different people depending upon the time, place, and the person concerned. Nowadays, people have this great issue whenever the question of adhikara means competency, capability, eligibility, fitness is raised. They believe that everybody should be able to do everything. But dharma does not work like. The same activity could be dharma for one, could be adharma for one. Could give rise to results, full results for one, could be fruitless for another. That is what Shanti Parva is raising. Furthermore, there was no one code of conduct beneficial to all in equal measure or applicable to all in all circumstances. To the contrary, the very thing that helped some rise acted as an obstruction in the case of the others. So these are Yudhishthira in these words. Basically, there's one more verse I have mentioned here, Udyog Parva. Sometimes adharma looked like dharma, at other times the established dharma turned seemingly into adharma, and there was no distinguishing the two. So these are the Yudhishthira is explaining purely out of his observation of life. What he observed in the external world, the complex nature of the life, and how this play of dharma happens in our everyday life. He was making an important observations how life is so complicated, people are so complicated that no one code can satisfy everybody. There is no one rule, one action that could be universally so universal that it will be applicable in the same format in all the times to all the people. We saw in the last sessions on Dharma Shastras speaking about Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, etc. Samanya Dharma, universal principles applicable to everybody in every place. But the tricky part, the hidden aspect there also is that when it comes to application, there also there may be different ways of applying the same things. It will not be universal. It will not be universally in the same way. There is no homogenized application. That is why dharma is diverse. What is ahimsa in one context could be ahimsa in another. Like, for example, you say that violence is himsa, killing is himsa. But when you give a pashu bali in the context of a ritual, such as a yagya, a Vaidika yagya, or in temples such as Kamakhya or another Shakta temples, puja, there that himsa is not ahimsa, it becomes ahimsa. Because there even the pashu is attaining swarga, pashu is also attaining anugraha of devata, and the doer is also attaining punya. It has the mandates of the Shastra. Therefore, what may appear as himsa there, it is not, it is ahimsa in reality. So these are the technicalities and intricacies in dharma is there. So this is the relativism, the problem of relativism. So Yudhishthira basically problematizes the very sources of pramana of dharma, such as Veda, Smriti, and Sadachara, and highlights the complex and multifaceted nature of the teachings and how they could pose problems. He says in Shanti Parva, all these are from Shanti Parva, he says, the learned declare Veda to be the basis of Dharma, but the Vedas change according to each cycle of time. Dharma of Satya Yuga is different. It's different in Treta and in Dwapara and Kali Yuga. It's still different Dharma according to different capacities. This we have already seen in the last sessions. I mentioned the temporal location of dharma, right? In the Satya Yuga, tapas was the main dharma. In Dwapara, it becomes later the yajna. In Kali Yuga, dana is the main dharma. Similarly, in different contexts, different functional roles, dharma is different. So he's trying to, Yudhishthira is actually trying to problematize this diverse nature of dharmic teachings. The intention behind Yudhishthira's question is not to say that all these sources are not valid, but rather to arrive at a proper guideline about how to approach this text, how to interpret dharma, how to understand dharma in our life. So he's saying there is one kind of dharma for a person in an equable situation, and of another kind for one in distress. That is apat condition, anapat condition. Anapat condition is normal condition when there is no distress. Apat condition is a situation where there is distress. So there's one whole chapter in Manusmriti which is only for apat condition, in distress. How can a reading of Veda alone decide what the dharma is in a distress situation shall be? So this is a very practical question, because when distress strikes us, that suffering does not have a single form. The distress, the suffering, the problems of life do not have a single shape and form. They have as many shapes as the universe, right? They are infinite. Each of us have faced many problems in many different permutations and combinations. There might be, we might identify some buckets of problems, like we have all this, in contemporary sense, we say poverty is a problem, hunger is a problem. So these are all different macro buckets we can identify. But at the micro level, each person's situation is different. The kind of problems one would face is very different. So this being the case, the distress being of wearing a very many hats, how can we say that only one Veda? When it is a one Veda, it means here the Veda, in the sense of available texts that is there, it has, by reading it, all solutions can be got to us. Or reading, this is equally true about reading one Smriti, reading one Mahabharata, reading Manusmriti, reading Ramayana, has all the solutions to it. Can we really say it? No, right? So just life is more complicated. Again, Shanti Parva says, as regards the Smritis, they were derived from the Vedas and could be authoritative, only Vedas were so. But if Vedas, when the Veda were not free from ambiguity, nor authoritative for every situation, how could the Smriti be? Often conflicting with each other, where was the force in either? So here Yudhishthira puts forward a very typical materialistic argument, the Charvaka argument, that you see the Vedas, in the Veda themselves, there are stipulations which are multifaceted in nature. It says one thing in one situation, another thing in another situation. Therefore, it is not free from ambiguity. Therefore, we cannot take it as authoritative in every situation, because it does not mention about every situation of life. Everything in Laukika is not found in the Veda. Therefore, since it does not address everything, then how can we say that as being authoritative? And it says also multiple things at multiple places. A good example is, at one place it says, do a certain Agnihotradi karma before sunrise. And another place it says, do the same Agnihotradi karma after sunrise. So should we do it before or should we do it after? It is a very different thing. That these are all not real contradictions. The Mimamsa school, the very purpose of the Purva Mimamsa was to study these apparent so-called contradictions and to resolve them. And they have already resolved them. They have given the principles of interpretation. And the matter of this interpretation, the process is very simple, and to put it in a very simplified language, two stipulations which appears to be contradictory first have to be analyzed whether in what context it is applied to what people it is applied. Is it said in different contexts for different groups of people, or is one is in a general principle, another is a more specified principle for a specified person or a specified context? In such cases, there is no contradiction. A contradiction, a so-called contradiction, happens only when two stipulations are given to the same person in the same context. So the good example for that is the Agnihotra example that I said. One says it has to be done before sunrise, one says immediately after sunrise. It is for the same person in the same context of performing Agnihotra. There, the Mimamsakas say, if such thing is there, then that means there is a vikalpa, that is, there is option. An individual can use their atmatushti, their individual conscience, their free will, to either do it before sunrise or do it after sunrise. So that is where the fourth pramana for dharma, atmatushti, comes into picture. It is not in isolation, but it is through this anchoring in Veda Samskruti Samiti. So it is not that these are not resolved, but Yudhishthira deliberately problematizes this. He is bringing a Charvaka perspective here, and we see even today people raising such questions. They reduce Veda into a merely historical document. They reduce Smriti into a artifact of past frozen in time, completely irrelevant today. So they raise questions such as, oh, all these texts have interpolations. They were written at different points in different time. Therefore, they are full of ambiguity, contradictions. See, all these arguments we hear this today also. So, and then Shanti Parva says, as for the cultured conduct being the standard, that is Sadachara being the standard of Dharma, it is suffered from the fallacy of circularity of definition. The conduct of the good men is called Dharma, and good men are those whose conduct reflect Dharma. With this fallacy in its definition, Sadachara cannot be proof of Dharma. This is again a very a Charvaka argument, a materialistic argument, because the materialists, they do not recognize Dharma at all. They reject Dharma as a principle because they accept only Pratyaksha Pramana. Some may accept Anumana based on Pratyaksha. Dharma being non-empirical, beyond the grasp of Indriyas, they are apratyaksha. They are beyond Pratyaksha Pramana. Therefore, they are unacceptable to the materialistic position. They don't accept the existence of punya, swarga, moksha, and such things. So it is from that perspective these arguments are being made. Yudhishthira is presenting those arguments. That there is a circularity. We say that Sadachara is conduct of the people who know Dharma, and then we also say that Dharma is the conduct of Sadachara, of people who know Dharma. But there is a very easy resolution to here. The Vaidikas who know Dharma, who know Vedas, who know Smritis, they anchor their lives in the teachings of the Shastras. In the Vidhi and Nisheda Vakyas of the Shastras, they shape their life according to that. At the same time, because life is complicated, they are also faced with different complex situations in life. And they use the principles of Dharma enunciated in the Shastras, the characteristics of Dharma enunciated in Shastras, such as Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Dhriti, Dhi, Indriya Nigraha, or the Prabhava that we discussed, Prabhava, Dharana, Ahimsa, Adroha. all these qualities they use, all these principles they use, and they contextualize the teachings into their lives to tackle the life situations, the problems that arise, to resolve it and proceed forward. Therefore, that is how you can learn from them. So when you're learning from Rama, or when you're learning from Yudhishthira, when you're learning from Bhagavan Krishna, you're learning this distillization and contextualization of the Shastriya teachings in action. So there is no circularity therefore here. They are basing their action in the distilled knowledge taken from the Shastras. So Shastra remains to be the guide, but this distilled understanding acts as the additional guide. You see, it is not really difficult to give an answer to this. Yudhishthira deliberately problematizes this, anticipating the objection, and with a desire to hear from Bhishma for a solution to this problem of relativism. So Bhishma provides a way out. In fact, Vyasa, we could say Vyasa, through the voice of Bhishma, clarifies this in Shanti Parva. He says, Shanti Parva says, one should depend upon one's intelligence to decide between dharma and adharma and act accordingly. So what is this intelligence? This intelligence is what we discussed, Atmanutushti. That Manusmriti says, Atmanutushti. Acting according to one's inner conscience, one's inner intelligence. Using our inner intelligence to distinguish between dharma and adharma, that is, to applying the distilled knowledge of dharma, adharma that is taken from the Shastras, that is understood from the Shastras, to our real life situation, and separating the wheat from the chaff. Any knowledge that is covered with doubt can hardly be called as knowledge. Therefore, it is necessary to remove one's doubt with its very roots. And this is precisely what the Mimamsa Shastra does. The very purpose of Mimamsa is to rationally, logically, using the intelligence, using our rational mind, to evaluate and interpret the teachings of the Dharma Pramana, such as Shruti and Smriti, in such a way that all the doubts are removed. And this is the very purpose of Dharma Shastra tradition. For the last 2000 years, all the Dharma Shastra works, the very purpose is to remove samshaya, to remove the doubt, to remove any ambiguity. I'll give one example from a real life situation. In 1947, during the partition times, in Bengal, you know how there were a lot of attacks on the Hindus. Many Hindus were forcibly fed beef by the Islamists with an intention to convert them, with an intention to make them dharma brashta, so that they can be converted into en masse into Islam. At that time, the great Saint Swami Karapatri Maharaj, he went to Bengal, he toured Bengal area, he provided lot of materialistic benefits such as blankets, food and shelter, etc. At the same time, when he encountered this large group of people who were verge on conversion because they believed they had become brashta after being forcibly fed beef, he counseled them on the basis of Manusmriti, saying that in Manusmriti there is a verse which says that any transaction based upon coercion is invalid. Basing his understanding on this pramana of Manusmriti, he told them, he convinced them, look, you did not partake beef willingly, voluntarily, but you were force-fed. Despite your opposition, without your consent. So this is akin to a forceful, coercive transaction. Therefore, it stands invalid. So you have not become brashta, you have not incurred any kind of papam per se. However, since you have partaken the beef, there is a mental guilt associated with it. There is some dosham associated with it. You simply go and take a bath in the Ganga as a Shuddhi, and you can continue as you were before. You have not become Brashta, you are still very much a Sanatani person. So this is how the interpretation, how the removal of samshaya is done by using proper deploying the Shastra Pramans. Then Shantiparva says the same act depending upon circumstances is now dharma and then adharma. Not understanding their essential relativity, one is naturally assailed with doubt. And only way to remove doubt is to understand through intelligence their relative nature. See how beautifully it says. It is not saying that there is no relativity. It is not saying that the dharma should be only homogenized teaching. There is only one size shoes which fits everybody. That is not what Mahabharata is saying. In fact, it is in the contemporary discourse, there's a big complaint against Sanatana Dharma saying that we have so many teachings, it is all confusing. Why cannot we have one single teaching? It is not possible because all of us are not robots. We are individuals with our own competencies, our own temperaments, our own thought processes, our own feelings, our own capabilities. We are not robots. Therefore, the path to attain Abhyudaya Nishrayasa for us also cannot be identical. Life is complicated, life is complex, therefore dharma applicable to life situations will also be complex. So we should not be afraid of relativity. We should need to have clarity. The purpose of the Shastras is to provide this clarity. The purpose of the commentary tradition is to provide this clarity. The purpose of even a text like Mahabharata, etc., is also to provide this clarity. We have to employ our intelligence to distill these teachings and then contextually apply it in our lives. So a good example, of this relative nature. Bhagavan Rama also faced this. The next day was his Pattabhisheka as Yuvaraja. I think and the previous day he was told that he has to go to forest. He could have done his Raja Dharma by doing a coup and taking political power. But he chose to follow Putra Dharma there to uphold the words of his father. Now you might have why. You might ask why. Because in a very different context. Later, he chose to forsake Sita in order to uphold his Raja Dharma. Just because of a rumor. Why is this different in action? The fact is, in the beginning, he was not a king yet. But more importantly, he was not abandoning his Raja Dharma. He was not abandoning his kingdom. Reason was, his father was alive. The king was alive. It was not that he was about to become king. He had already, the father is not there. He was the only king available for the kingdom. He also had full faith in the capability of his brother, Bharata, as a good king. as an ideal ruler, as a ruler, somebody who is as good as himself, his own self. And the Ramayana shows the great, wonderful nature of Bharata fully. He was fully devoted to Rama, to Dharma. Therefore, in the first case, Rama was actually not abandoning his Rajadharma. Because one, his father was alive, the king Dasharatha was alive. He later died, but he was alive at that time. And second, his brother Bharata was there, who was as good as him as far as ruling is concerned. Third, the exile was only for 14 years. So he would eventually come back. It is a temporary situation. It is only a stopgap thing. And if we were to take power by force, then he may have lost the people's support, which he already had. The Ayodhya people simply loved Rama. But if we were to imprison his old father the way Kamsa did, then he would have lost that love. You see, there are many political dimensions to Rama's action. It was not just about Rama's love to his father, that was there, that was definitely there. But there are more aspects to it. If Dasharatha's words were to be proved wrong, that he gave a promise to Kaikeyi but he did not follow it through, that will bring shame, that will bring distrust among people to whole Raghukulam itself. Why would the Praja will trust Rama also in the future when Rama's father did not keep his own word? For a king, trust is everything. Without the trust of the citizens, he cannot run his kingdom. So, thinking of all these aspects, Rama did what was this. It was also to maintain this trust, to ensure that people do not use Sita as a scapegoat for their own transgressions of Dharma. He asked Lakshmana to take her to the ashrama of Valmiki. It was not that Rama did not believe in Sita. He never once doubted Sita. Even during Agni Pariksha, after Agni Pariksha happened, first of all, Rama never asked Sita to do Agni Pariksha. After Agni Pariksha and all also, he clearly stated that how he never doubted her even once. Because she is in her heart. How can he doubt? But it was needed in the sense that he could not have accepted her directly, because otherwise people's mind is fickle like a monkey. They would directly say, look, Sita lived for a year at Ravana's palace. So she is no longer a Pativrata. And since Rama has accepted such Pativrata, such Sita who lived in another's palace for a year as his wife, therefore adultery should be accepted. This is how people justify their actions, using others as scapegoats. Right? It is to prevent such a situation wherein Bhagavati Sita is insulted in such a way, made use of in such a way. Rama did what he did. And because of Agni's anugraham, Sita very clearly showed that her Patibratya is not lost. But despite this, many years later, there were some rumors in the kingdom, there were some attempts that came to Rama's notice about how people were trying to use that instance as a justification for their own transgressions. That is why he made her go to Valmiki's ashram. It was not just he abandoned her. He sent her to Valmiki's ashram where she and the kids, she was pregnant then, they could have a safe environment. So there are many such nuances, right? On the contrary, Bhishma himself, when he took that vrata to remain brahmachari, he abandoned his Rajadharma. But I think even he could not have predicted what would follow later. So we could cut him some slack, but that is a fact. Dharma and cultured conduct arise from intelligence. It is from intelligence that they are known. So what is being said is here very, very simple. People are not robots. We should not act like robots. Even when we are trying to understand Dharma, when we are studying the Shastras, we should, we should not act like thugs, act like ignorant thugs. We should not keep aside our common sense. We should not keep aside our inner conscience. We should not keep aside our intelligence. Bhagavan has given us buddhi, and we should make use of this buddhi. So we should neither be ati prasangi. We should neither use intelligence to misuse the intelligence to the extreme of skepticism and rejection of all dharma the way Charvakas do, nor we should take to blind faith route the way the Abrahamics do. We should hold forth intelligence as a friend who will help us to understand the dharma pramanas and then distill the knowledge and apply consciously in our day-to-day life. So it is by recourse to such intelligence, learning different things from different people, different sources, and not depending upon only one branch or one source, that one should illuminate one's path. This is very, very important to understand, that even when studying the Shastra Pramanas, we should keep our mind and heart open. We should not be too focused on one principle with the exclusion of other principles. Often this is what we do. It is okay to hold on to one dharmic principle in life and practice it steadfastly. But when you are practicing it, we should not lose of the sight of the larger picture. Just like how Krishna advised Yudhishthira to say that Ashwattama Hatakunjaraha, it was a half-truth kind of thing, but for the greater dharma. For winning the Kurukshetra war, it was necessary. For winning the dharma, it was necessary. But on the other hand, Bhishma steadfastly hold on to his oath, but he lost the larger picture, wherein his whole family, the Kurukula, there was resulted in the great destruction of the entire Kula itself. Right? So we have to be more nuanced, more wise in our understanding and interpreting and practice of dharma. So in short, Mahabharata says that one should not be boggled down by the complex nature of things or the contextual nature of dharma when it comes to practice. Rather, one must accept the relativism and rely upon different sources of dharma to understand the different dharmic principles at play in a situation, and then one should resort to one's own intelligence, buddhi, or the power of discretion, that is viveka, to arrive at right conclusion regarding the course of action to be taken. And this is the very essence of teaching of Manusmriti also. When it enunciates the fourfold pramanas of Dharma, starting from Akhila Veda to the Smriti, the Shila of the Sadachara of the Shishtas, to Atmatushti, this is exactly what it is being done. From the eternal teachings of the Vedas and Smritis to their contextualizations in the form of Sadachara embodied in the Itihasa Puranas, as well as embodied in the great lives of our own Acharyas, our own elders in the family, to the Atmatushti, wherein there is a deployment of our intelligence, buddhi, in accordance to our Atma, our inner conscience. This is from absolute principles to the relative level of complicated nature of life. This kind of distillation, contextualization of the teachings has to be done. That is the way forward. And however, this is also important. Mahabharata also cautions against over-reliance upon logic and rationality, and insists that the true knowledge is beyond the reach of rationality. This is again very important. Using intelligence does not mean taking it to the extreme, like the materialistics do, rejecting all the Dharma Pramanas itself. The purpose, this logic is like a sword. It can cut down your enemy, but it can also cut down your friend, or it can cut down your own self. Anushasana Parva says it is when the logic of the argument comes to an end that one gains knowledge of a superior order. And it is in the fullness of the light of that knowledge that the world is lighted. Give up trying to limit within speech the logic of the argument, what cannot be grasped. Right? What cannot be grasped should not be limited to merely logic, merely our Indriya Jnana. This is what exactly Manusmriti also meant when it says Shruti and Smriti, Veda and Smriti should not be criticized. That is, they being atindriyas, beyond the grasp of indriyas, the Hetu Shastra, that is the logic and rational means. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. It's around 8 o'clock now.
Yeah, we will be ending in another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Manusmriti says that using Hetu Shastra, the logic as your sword, you should not try to dismantle the Vedas and Shrutis, Vedas and Smriti, because the knowledge they reveal, the Dharma, are by definition beyond the grasp of the empirical means, including logical means. However, the Manusmriti in the same context in another verse says, this sword of logic, this mimamsa, that is, as a mimamsa, as an investigation, as a rational analysis, should be used to understand these texts, to arrive at right conclusions about the teachings of this text, to use this to arrive at discernment. The term there used is Jnana Chakshu, the eye of the knowledge. So what I mentioned is here itself, Manu 2.8 and 2.10. In 2.8 it says, having fully perceived all with this eye of knowledge, Jnana Chakshu, the learned man should enter upon his duties, resting upon the authority of Veda. And 2.10 it says that the Shruti and Smriti should not be criticized. And then on 2.11 it says, relying upon the science of the dialectics, the Mimamsa Shastra, if someone should, or the Hetu Shastra, if someone should disregard Shruti and Smriti, they should be excluded. They should, by the good men, the Nastikas and Veda Nindakas. So this Nastikas and Veda Nindakas who use this logic as a weapon to dismantle the disregard the Dharma Pramanas, they should be disregarded. However, we should use this logic and rationality, this Jnana Shakshu, the intelligence, as the means to understand this Veda and Smritis and arrive at proper understanding of what Dharma is and apply it in our lives. So this is the use of Atmatushti, use of Buddhi. Finally, Mahabharata enunciates the 3 tests of Dharma, and these are very, very useful. Pratyaksha, Agama, and Shishtachara. Pratyaksha is how direct perception of the everyday life situations, the matters at hand. Agama is anchoring ourselves in the distilled teachings of our Shruti Smriti, Itihasa Purana Shastras. And Shishtachara is the conduct of our Acharyas, our great civilization heroes, our Devatas and Rishis. Bhishma says that these 3 tests are not to be seen in isolation but always considered together in unity. Know this, that Dharma is a unity. Anushasana Parva says. Know that Dharma is in unity, and all the 3 proofs, 3 tests show that unity. My mind does not accept that they show different separate dharmas. The path that they show, walk on it. The inquiry into Dharma is not through the logic of argument. That is, it should not be only done through logic. The logic is to be anchored in these 3 tests. The facts of the matter, the complex life situations through Pratyaksha, the Dharmika knowledge, Karma Phala Jnana, that is given in the Shruti and Smriti Shastras, and the Shishtachara, the application, the relative aspect, the contextualization that are shown to us through Itihasa Puranas, as well as in the teachings and the lives of our own Acharyas. You anchor logic in all of them and then arrive at a distilled knowledge and act upon it. These 3 tests in unity constitute the solution to the problem of relativism that we discussed. We should anchor oneself in these 3 tests, and using one's intelligence and learning, one's Jnana Chakshu, arrive at a determination of what is Dharma and what is Adharma in a given situation. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I can take for a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Sridharji. Can we take up the questions of the Pradhana, because it's 8 o'clock?
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. Sridhar Patarji, can you do the
स्वस्ति
Pradhana?
प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु काले वर्षतु पर्जन्यः पृथिवी सस्यशालिनी देशोऽयं क्षोभरहितो ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः अपुत्राः पुत्रिणः सन्तु पौत्रिणः अधनाः सधनाः सन्तु जीवन्तु शरदां शतं सत्यं वद धर्मं चर स्वाध्यायान् मा प्रमदः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ओम श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम ॐ सर्वे जनाः सुखिनो भवन्तु स्वस्ति
Swasti. ధన్యవాదాలు సుధీర్ పటర్జీ. Thank you very much. Now we raise for the national anthem. जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे जय हिंद जय हिंद. Okay. Yeah, we now go to the questions, and there's, I think, if you have seen the chat box, the question.
Yeah, should I take it up?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Bhishma gave solution to the problem of relativism, but why he himself did not use it when Draupadi was being disrobed? Okay. This was most probably against the three tests of proof of Dharma. I think that the situation had nothing to do with the three tests of Dharma or anything. If you see this Draupadi Vastraharana is a very, very instructive episode. There is a lot of nuances, lot of teachings that we can learn. We should never forget that the purpose of the Shastra is pedagogy. It is teaching about Dharma. We learn from the good teachings as much as we learn from the mistakes. Vyasa, I am sure, must have put many hints on this matter in the Mahabharata, but in a very limited way, as I see that episode, as far as Bhishma was concerned, Bhishma says that the subtlety, Dharma is very deep and very subtle. It is not easy to judge. The reason why he says this is, Draupadi herself raises a question here. Did Yudhishthira lose himself first or his wife first? There are a lot of matters in her deep questions that she raised. See, when Draupadi, when she spoke, she did not also speak like a typical woman in such a situation that we would expect. She asked a profound dharmika question, a profound question about the nature of the things. We will not go deep into it, but the fact of the matter was Bhishma's unresponsiveness, as far as I see it, is partly due to his oath to protect, to uphold, to be in alignment with the throne of the Hastinapur. So the person who should have spoken there was actually not Bhishma, but Dhritarashtra. The blind king, though physically blind, chose to also remain morally blind also, and he did so throughout Mahabharata. He opened his eyes only for his son Duryodhana. He was a active and passive collaborator of Duryodhana in all his wrong actions, all the while pretending to be the handicapped person who is incapable, who is unable to reign on his son. But the fact is, it was Dhritarashtra who was the greatest supporter, beneficiary, who benefited Duryodhana, who was the greatest support of Duryodhana. So the one who should have spoken there was Dhritarashtra, the king. So I think the Bhishma's silence or his unwillingness to speak clearly was partly due to his oath to the throne, to whoever sits on the throne. Doesn't matter whether he was competent or not. This is why I find Bhishma's oath to be very problematic. So that was the issue. The issue is not about three tests of Dharma. The second of the aspect is, even the best of the persons can make mistakes. Even the best of the persons may fail to arrive at proper discretion on any matter. We are not Bhagavan, we are not Krishna, we are not Rama. So we do not have Sarvagyatva, right? So this being the case, we all can make mistakes. Did not Yudhishthira make mistake when he agreed for a gambling match, when he did not even suspect that Duryodhana, etc., could set a trap for him? When I think it was Vidura who came to invite them for a gambling match, and Vidura told Yudhishthira not to accept it. He did not heed to counsel. The best of us make mistakes. So that is the learning from the session, from the incidents. We don't need to make moral judgments on them today. We don't only need to learn from. The second question is, what is important regarding ethics of Dharma, rule of law or discretion? I think I thought this should be pretty obvious from all our sessions over the last week and today. Both are equally important. How will you arrive at discretion? On what basis are you applying discretion? To what material are you applying discretion? The vivekam or discretion comes into play, the atmatushti comes into play only when there are other dharma pramanas on whose teachings you are applying that discretion, right? For you to separate wheat from the chaff, there should be wheat and the chaff in the first place to begin with, right? So these rules of dharma are that material. Dharma is non-empirical, beyond the grasp of the senses. We cannot see it, hear it. We cannot directly arrive it directly using our pratyaksha pramana. Therefore, we have to first learn what is dharma from our shastras, from our acharyas. And when you have gained sufficient knowledge of this, a distilled version of the knowledge of it is enough for most people. Everybody don't need to be scholars, right? Our purpose is implementation. So when you have a distilled understanding of dharma, then you can apply discretion to it, apply vivekam to it. Right? So both are important, because without using intelligence, without using vivekam, we will not be able to apply dharma properly. We will end up considering what is dharma as adharma and what is adharma as dharma. We see many people doing this in our own everyday lives. So, therefore, the four pramanas and the use of jnana chakshu to understand those pramanas, both are important. It is not either or option.
Right. Thank you very much, Sridharji. Very insightful question, answers, and also the session as such is very interesting. And hopefully tomorrow it will be more interesting, and people still are yet to come out from your today's teachings. I think only 2 people have asked the questions. And there is one more. Okay. If Bhishma has gone back on his commitment to keep up his promise to say, okay, no, you can read it.
Yeah, I just read it. So, if he went back on his promise to safeguard his kingdom and reputation, would it be considered a mistake? See, it would be considered a breaking of his oath. Yes, he would no longer, the Devavrata would no longer have been a Bhishma. He would have remained a Devavrata. Sure, he would have faced lot of criticism from many quarters for his breaking of the vow, especially when a king breaks the vow, it is never taken, never seen lightly. The fact is, Bhishma should never have taken the vow to begin with. It was an immature decision. It was a decision taken in Pitra Moha, out of his love for his father. See, loving your father is good, but he was also had a Raja Dharma. He was a Yuvaraja. He should not have considered, he should not have set aside the very future of the kingdom. He thought everything will go rightly if he, even if he was not become a king, somebody good person will be. He took the decision in naivety. That was the problem. That was the source of the issue. Now, after taking the oath, when things were going south, he should have taken back the kingdom by breaking his oath. Does not matter. There would have been Lokaninda, fine, but it would have avoided the eventual downfall of Kurukula, eventual Kurukshetra war, wherein hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people perished, millions of women become widowed, millions of children become fatherless, and right? But it was all fated from a larger perspective. It had to happen in one way or the other way. So we can cut some slack to him because the very purpose of avatar of Krishna was to do Bharavatarana, to reduce the burden on Prithvi, Bhumi Devi, and prepare the field for the oncoming Kali Yuga. So that is from a macro picture. But from the standpoint of the society, Bhishma should never have taken that vow. And once taken, he could have broken that vow also when he saw things were going south.
Okay, thank you.
Many times, Satyavati urged him, requested him, but he never listened. He should have listened. Then the trajectory would have been very different. But we don't know. We are sitting here today judging something happened long time back. Who knows what Bhishma knew? Perhaps he had some kind of vision into the future. Perhaps the future that if Bhishma had broken his vow and taken the rule of Hastinapur, that future might have been much worse than the future. We don't know. See, We think that Mahabharata says everything. It does not. There are many things it does not say, right? We don't know that. So we can just give him benefit of doubt or not be too critical of him. But there is no, but we can understand from his mistakes, just like Krishna himself teaches in Mahabharata that asking Yudhishthira to say, Ashwattama Hatakunjaraha. So that is a quite good contrast to Bhishma's vow.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Wrong oaths should not be taken.
See, this is again whether Bhishma incurred punya or papam is very complicated question, because there would be both. See, the way he stuck on to his oath, practice brahmacharya will bring its own positive benefits, but there will also be suffering or karmic demerit that arising from the eventual trajectory that his oath led to. But we should also consider many other factors. Bhishma was not a mere human being. He was a Vasu, born from Ganga. And you know that Vasus are not mere humans. So it is very difficult to speak about Papa Punya and what kind of karma he incurred in such cases of such beings. It is beyond our limited knowledge. So there is no need to speculate on that. But I will like to add a different dimension to it. Somebody was just mentioned a few days back, I saw, after the Kurukshetra war, the Kauravas went to Swarga immediately. Whereas the Pandavas had to rule for long years, and then they had to travel that long journey to Swarga, and finally they attained Swarga. So they say at the end of the day, both Kauravas and Pandavas went to Swarga. Then what Kurukshetra war, what Dharma Yuddha? Because both camps of Dharma and Adharma attained Swarga. What is this? What karma phala? So I just want to respond it because that is also connected to Papa Punya. See, things can be analyzed at many different levels. At a cosmic, macroscopic level, at the level of the devatas, at the level of the humans. And they may appear very differently at different levels. If I'm not mistaken, Barbarica, it was Barbarica who saw on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Krishna alone. Krishna was fighting from all the Pandavas were Krishna themselves, all the Kauravas were Krishna themselves. Everything was Krishna. Krishna playing out his Leela everywhere. From that perspective, then, there is no punya, no papa, no war at all. It is all merely Leela of Bhagavan. But that is a very high macroscopic level of analysis. But let us come down to our level. From our level of karma phala relationship, does it mean because both of them went to Swarga, does it mean karma phala did not function? Let us understand the nature of war. The Dharma Shastras are very clear. For a Kshatriya, dying on the battlefield while fighting your enemy will definitely take you to Swarga. Just like performing certain yagyas will lead a Brahmana to Swarga, similarly, Kshatriya, by dying on the battlefield, will definitely go to Swarga. That is the Virgati. That is the death of the warrior. He will definitely attain the Swarga because war is a yagya. Rana yagya it is called in Mahabharata. War is a yagya where the deaths of the soldiers, of the individuals, is the ahutis of that yagya. In fact, if you read Mahabharata carefully, the whole Mahabharata is a yaggika. There is a yaggika level of interpretation of Mahabharata, wherein the whole Yuddha is a Rana Yagya, wherein different kinds of offerings were there. In the very end, if you remember, Ashwatthama slaughtering the junior Pandavas, the children of Panchali, Draupadi. That episode, Ashwatthama becomes possessed by Shiva, Rudra, when he goes to slaughter them. Everybody else had gone away from the camp. Only the sons of the Draupadi were there. The Yagika interpretation is that was the Shesha Bhaga of the Yagya that the Rudra claims for himself. You see how at different levels things can be understood. So at our level, if we have to see, the Kshatriya invariably goes to Swarga, whether you are Dharma or the Adharmic side. If you are doing a war as a Dharma Yuddha, you will go to Swarga. See, Krishna at the beginning says to Arjuna, fight the war without thinking about anything. If you win the war, you will enjoy the earth. But if you die in the war, you will enjoy Swarga. Same thing happened. But this does not mean that whatever papam that Duryodhana, etc., did became nullified fully. They might have been nullified to some extent, in the sense that dying in the war is itself a purificatory act. It frees one of many, many papam. But whether it purified Duryodhana of everything, we don't know. There is no way of knowing it. So we can say that he might have gone to Swarga, but if there is any residue adharma, that Duryodhana will take Janma again and face the consequences. We should also keep in mind that just as Pandavas were putras of Devatas, they had the essence. It is the Devatas themselves who manifested as Pandavas. Arjuna had the essence of Indra, etc. The Duryodhana, Karna, etc., they were also manifestation of Asuras. The Mahabharata clearly says this. When Duryodhana wanted to commit suicide, this one of the Asura takes him to Asurloka and they say, you are our only hope. You should not commit suicide. You should fight the war and defeat these Devatas. You are our spokesperson. You are our manifestation on the ground in Bhuloka in this eternal Devasura Yuddha. You see, so many layers are there.
Okay.
So I hope it addresses the question. It is not a contradiction that somehow the Kauravas went to Swarga after dying. That is because they become ahuti to that yagya. Just like the pashus we give ahuti in a Soma yagya, or pashus that are given in Bali at a Shakta temple, they also attain Swarga. Because that is the nature of the yagya. It gives certain fruits. In the Rana Yagya, those who fight without fear, without showing their back, they will win. They will attain Swarga.
Okay.
Sorry for digression from the actual topic.
Yeah. Right. I mean, thank you. It was a nice elaborative clarification. And I think in the end of things, going to Swarga, it doesn't mean anything really big, because the moment the balance goes out of things, you are back. So going to Swarga of the Kauravas, as I understand, is they had a little positive balance, and the moment that little balance is out, they are back. But as far as Pandavas are concerned, their balance is, because they are on the Punya side, they are fighting for the Dharma. When they go, though they go late, they stay for longer time. That's what I feel.
Yes, but eventually, longer or shorter, everybody has to come back until
Yeah.
until they attain moksha. So
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
moksha perspective, it is the same. You go there temporarily, but
yeah,
to put it in a perspective, even the temporary state is a very long period compared to the time in Bhuloka, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a long period of
Right.
happiness.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we end the show with today's with your permission. And thank you very much. And see you
Thank you
tomorrow.
very much.
Namaskar. I end this.